This basement is my prison.
This basement is my prison. Torchinsky Files.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It's the Torchinsky Files again. I know it's been a minute since we've had a chance to sit down and really, chat with one another, but I appreciate your being patient and coming back because I have something really interesting to talk to you about this time. And what I want to talk to you about has actually everything to do with talking, because I want to talk to you about speech synthesizers.
Watch out! Hurry!
Who's that talking, Wizard of Odyssey?
A voice! Odyssey 2's new voice module.
In this early period in the 80s, for some reason it was thought that almost all these machines needed to talk.
I'm about to show you something new for Intellivision that will revolutionize the way video games are played and compared.
There are a bunch of speech synthesizers for home computers and things like that, but when I think of the add-on modules, I can think of three that were probably the biggest, and that was the Texas Instruments one, which was for the TI 99-4A computer. This one's interesting because they kind of started it all. The very first actual integrated circuit, the first chip that was designed to synthesize speech, was developed in 1978 for their famous Speak and Spell, which you know is a thing that may have taught you how to spell things if you're, Gen Xer or something like that, or if you're an alien trapped on Earth, you would have used this in combination with an umbrella to help yourself phone home. It was a Texas Instruments chip called the TMS 5200 that did the speech. This was the same one used in that Chrysler voice alert system.
All monitored systems are functioning.
It would say, "A door is ajar, your fuel is low, and stop touching me there," or whatever the hell else the machine said. It had an interesting little flip-up panel that was supposed to have modules for extra vocabulary, but they never really used it for anything, so it's just a weird little pocket you can hide drugs or whatever in. Also, what's interesting about the TI module is that it had an extra expansion connector on the side, so this would plug into the side of the TI, and then the thinking was, if you wanted to buy disk drives or a printer or anything like that, they would keep plugging on, these little sidecar things. It's ridiculous! This thing is like 4.5 feet long. It was a terrible idea, but I love that they just kind of thought, just keep plugging them into the sides without really thinking, what's that actually going to mean? The other two popular ones were the Intellivoice from Mattel Electronics. So this one was for the popular Intellivision game console. It would plug into the side. Much like the TI, it also had a place for future expansion for vocabulary modules that was never actually used because they didn't actually turn out to need it. Only a few games were actually made for the Intellivision that really used this thing. It used a General Instruments chip called the SP0256, and that chip was the same company that made the CPU and the Intellivision made it, General Instruments, so that's why they went with that. Pretty popular voice chip. And the other major home console to have a speech synthesizer was this one. This was from Magnavox. It was called the Voice. It was for the Odyssey 2, and it used basically a version of the same chip as in the Intellivision here. And the big difference was this one for the Odyssey would work with all kinds of games, and if it would work with speech, then you'd get speech, and if it didn't, you didn't have the synthesizer, it would still play. But Intellivision was making games that specifically required it. So as a result, only a few games were made. I don't think any of these really caught on as much as they thought they would. Let's figure out which one is the best, because they use similar chips, similar technology, but they all go about it in slightly different ways. So why don't we try them out on the actual machines, see what they can do, and see which one we like most yapping at us. Okay, we're going to start off with the Texas Instruments speech synthesizer for the TI 99-4A. I only have one piece of software that actually works with the speech synthesizer, so that's all we're really going to have to test it with, and it's a game for the TI called Parsec, and it does do a little bit of talking, so we'll listen to it talk.
Press fire to begin.
Alright, you hear that? Press fire to begin. It was actually a pretty good sounding speech synthesis there. Let's see if it says anything else if I crash. Say anything else?
Alert. Alien craft advancing.
There's various different methods of producing speech. There's one method that creates a baseline buzz that then modulates it into speech. It's complicated. I don't really understand all of it. But the upshot is sound quality isn't bad. The downsides are not much software for the TI actually used the speech synthesizer, but one thing that it did have that was good was in the terminal software, it did have a true text-to-speech converter. So you could actually type things in, and it would actually speak them, and that, is goofy and fun. Okay, so next up we have the Intellivoice for the Mattel Intellivision. You notice the look of the Intellivoice doesn't really fit with the look of the Intellivision 2. That's because this was originally designed to work with the original Intellivision, which was this big thing that was brown and had this gold foil look, and it had like wood grain, and then they redesigned a smaller, cheaper Intellivision for the Intellivision 2 that had a kind of a more modern, clean, this kind of beige and black look, and these things do not look alike at all. There's only like 5 or 6 or so games for the Intellivoice. I only have one. I have one that's called B-17 Bomber. As you can see, it says proudly right on there, it talks, because that was a big thing. And you actually had to listen to what it was saying when you played this game. So the speech was a crucial part. It was telling you important things to do. So if you did not have the speech synthesizer, you could not play the game effectively. Much like the other ones, this one has a set of pre-recorded digitized phrases, like when it says Mattel Electronics Presents, that's recorded. And then it has, the cartridge itself can hold some specialized digitized voices, which they use for the title here, which you'll note is kind of special.
Mattel Electronics presents B-17 Bomber.
B-17 Bomber, which they've... The only reason I can think of maybe they did it was a reference maybe to Slim Pickens from Dr. Strangelove. I can't really figure out why, because that deep southern accent doesn't show up anywhere else in the game. Let's listen to it again.
Mattel Electronics presents B-17 Bomber.
It's weird. It's just a weird thing. But the quality of the speech actually isn't too bad, especially for the recorded sounds like that. I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know what I'm doing. There's a map, but it does tell you things like when you're, if you're about to crash or something like that. Maybe I can do that. Can I just crash so we can hear what that's like? How do I crash? That does something else. Crash, damn it. Am I going fast? How do I speed up? Alright, well, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So, but what I do know is that Intellivision's Intellivoice, only a few games, decent sound quality, but there just wasn't a whole lot to really do with it, and you were required to have the Intellivoice unit for the games it had. You couldn't just play them, with the exception of this baseball game they had. Okay, so now we're here with the Odyssey 2's The Voice module, and the voice is different from the others in a couple of key ways. For one thing, it doesn't pipe the audio signal through the television. Instead, it's got a built-in speaker and its own little slidey volume control knob right on the unit itself, which is a little bit strange, but you get used to it. The Odyssey's sound chip that it had originally is pretty bad, so the voice actually is capable of enhancing some music effects as well, which the Odyssey kind of desperately needed. More so certainly than the Intellivision or the TI that we saw. So like the other two, it can create completely synthesized speech based on discrete phonemes, and it also has some pre-recorded voices in there. So again, the synthesized speech is going to sound more robotic, but you can get a much more natural sound out of the pre-recorded stuff. So, let's start with a game that uses mostly the pre-recorded sounds. This is a game called Casey's Crazy Chase, and let's just give it a try. So you hear it when it said go. That was a pre-recorded sound. And then, come on, go over there. Wait, it's supposed to talk more. It says go. Say other things. It's supposed to say things like watch out. Alright, hold on. We'll win so you can hear the good sound. And... Hurry.
Incredible. Go.
They also recorded that creepy-ass laugh in there, too, which is kind of funny.
Watch out. Watch out.
Okay, I just gotta hit the head of that. There you go.
Out. Oh, no.
So this game is called Attack of the Time Lord, and it has this little skull head that says stuff to you, and it's all synthesized. So here, you can just hear it.
Seize the planet.
He says, seize the planet.
The Earth will be mine.
The Earth will be mine. And it's a very robotic sounding voice.
Prepare for defeat.
Prepare for defeat? Barely understand it.
Goodbye, Earthling.
Goodbye, Earthling. That's a good little sign-off for anybody. Goodbye, Earthling. Alright, so, let's really, since the Odyssey did have this keyboard, which was almost useless for most of the stuff you did with an Odyssey, but the one place it really did shine is that they actually made one game It was just called Type and Tell. You type, it talks, it says right there. And it was literally just a text-to-speech synthesizer. Something that's interesting about the quality of robotic speech is that it was kind of established even before there were robots or computers. In 1907, L. Frank Baum, the guy who made the Wizard of Oz, wrote a character in a book called Tick-Tock, who was a little round, kind of spherical robot man. But when he talked, the way they put it in the books, it was like, hello, Dorothy, and it was all these hyphens. It was a very staccato, kind of stilted kind of speech, and that's still kind of how we thought about robots speaking all the way up until even today in some ways. And this was in 1907, before the word robot had even been coined, which wasn't coined until Capek's play RUR came out in around 1920. If your goal for any of these plug-in speech modules is to just be able to make a computer talk, the Odyssey would win it hands down, because it's the only one that has a cheap, easy way to do that.
So let's say, what's something we can say here? This basement is my prison.
This basement is my prison.
Okay, so the quality of the speech is very robotic, very rough, and there's some things it doesn't pronounce that great. Like my child's name is Otto.
Otto.
It pronounces it Atu, so you kind of have to type in some things kind of phonetically. Like if I put in his name, Otto, then it'll actually pronounce it right by spelling it like toe, T-O-E. That'd freak you out.
We'll do the War Games one.
Shall we play a game?
Shall we play a game?
Oh. It's hard to understand why we wanted to have our computers talk so often, and it's kind of telling that the leader of these in that first generation of game consoles, Atari, never bothered with an actual add-on hardware speech synthesizer, because I think maybe they were a little smart and they realized, it's cool, but is it that cool? Look, this one I know didn't have all that much to do with cars, but yeah, whatever, it's fun, and you learned a little something maybe. So yeah, that's the speech synthesis episode, and yeah, if you want to know any more about this, consult your local passing robot, and tell them hello for me.
Let's see what these sound like.
Anyway, it's fun to play with this kind of stuff.